Hey everyone, I am Chris Knight, and you are watching the Gospel According to Chris here on the wonderful Real Review 3000. And today we have our Wheel of Names winner from last week, and that is Kiri Morning. Kiri, how are you doing?
Hi, morning. Well, it's good morning for me. It's evening for you.
You're like what, 13, 14 hours ahead, something like that?
Yeah, it's now 8:30 in the morning.
13 hours. So yeah. I appreciate you doing this. I really do.
No problem.
Well, let's just get off to a running start. And first off, tell everybody who you are, what you're about. Tell them where they can find you.
Well, I am Kiri Morning. I do a trans and geek vlog on YouTube. You can find me by searching Kiri Morning. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and I'm usually the one with the bitchy attitude shooting down SJWs.
Well, there you go. The link to where they can find you, at least your YouTube and your Twitter, is down below in the description, so people can find you. Unfortunately, last week with Mary Mayhem, I forgot to do that. I'm a horrible person. I once again want to apologize to Mary, who is on fire right now, well on her way to, I think, 3,000 subscribers now.
Yeah, she's got enough. She's got enough advertisement. She doesn't need anymore.
Well, you know what? I still do it. That's just how that goes.
I'm just teasing.
I know.
I love Mary. I love Mary.
Kiri's sideways. Mary says you're sideways, and we'll just explain that Kiri is not signed up through Streamlabs yet, StreamYard yet. So she has to sign up in order to turn herself right side up. It's that whole thing. You just hit 3,100, Mary. Well, congratulations.
Oh, awesome. Congrats.
Today what we're talking about is The Princess Bride. And this is something I'm rather passionate about. I know Mary, I think we were on a watch party together watching this. And you're actually the one that brought this up. You're like, I just watched this. And so I was like, let's go with that. Tell me why. Go ahead. No, go right ahead.
Well, because Ruthie, Star Wars for Life, I told her to go and watch Princess Bride. And she tweeted out a while back, like last week, saying, Kiri Morning suggested I watch it. It's a good movie. And the tweet blew up. Like there was like 400 or 500 replies in the first couple of hours. And I kept saying, see, I told you. And then I'm like, I haven't watched it in a while, and my son hasn't seen it yet, so let's do a movie night. So we watched it, and that kind of stemmed all from the this rumor about them remaking it, because I'm fuming about that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's just crazy that they've even discussed doing this.
Yeah, I mean, the movie is a classic, and it's flawless as it is. There is nothing they could do at all to improve upon it. Zero. The acting was spot on. The visuals were great. I mean, the cheesy special effects and rat costumes just added to the fun and campiness of it. Anything you try to do to improve it is just going to ruin it.
No, I think that's true.
I can't even think of a single thing. Being a filmmaker myself, I can't even think of a single thing that they could possibly do to improve on it. Maybe make it HD. That's about it.
Well, that's fine. So, I did a video on this a while back. I'm looking for it right now. Find it really quick here, hopefully. It was why The Princess Bride should not be remade and a case for why it should. It's gotten a few views. It's gotten some comments and stuff. I'll go over it really quick. I said that, you can't remake this movie because it was a matter of, one, the director basically begged the writer to do this. 2, the writer was on board fully with it. 3, the casting was just perfect, whether by happenstance or by purposely knowing that just knowing the feel, Rob Reiner casted the perfect people or got the right casting director to do it.
Yeah.
Now, my only way that I said that this would possibly work to remake it is if you brought back the majority of the people. There were a few people I couldn't figure out how to bring back, but you could,
like Andre the Giant.
Well, yes, for sure. I said, though, I can't remember what his name is, but oh shoot, I can't remember what his name is on WWE, but there's a guy that's a giant now. I think he's called the Big Show. Yeah, Big Show. And he's like a few inches shorter than Andre was, or something like that. But he would be able to play the part. I said we could bring him in, and that would work. But you needed to have Fred Savage, and Fred Savage would not play the grandfather, but he'd play a father, a single father who has a daughter that's sick, and that Wesley could play Prince Humperdinck. Now I know everybody's like, "Oh no, that can't work." But here's the thing: I explained it very simply. When I mismatched the people,
Right.
I said basically that by keeping the cast the same but recasting where they are in the thing, you can play off of it. Like if Wesley was now Prince Humperdinck, you could even stop the whole thing for 5 seconds and say, like have him look at the screen like he did like in Men in Tights or something, and look at the screen and go like, really? We're going to do this? And you could do funny things like that. But the reason why the people would change, some of them would, is because the girl would imagine these people differently than Fred Savage did as a child. So you have to remember,
that's a good point,
as this is going on, Fred Savage is imagining what we're seeing. This is not us seeing this. This is his imagination, the character he envisions. Therefore, his daughter may very well think that what he thought was Wesley is actually Prince Humperdinck. But the only way that would work is all of them would have to come back that you can bring back. And you'd have to recast different parts, except for Miracle Max and his wife, because they could play the same people. But
I don't think they need quite as much makeup this time.
No, Vicini, he could still play himself. I mean, he hasn't changed that much. You have to recast Fezzik, but you could recast him with the Big Show. I'm not sure where Manny Patinkin could go. I said possibly the Six Finger Man. I know that's but it would be kind of funny because they're still friends. Him and Wesley are still friends. But and I don't know about Buttercup, but there's ways to do it. I just don't think anybody's smart enough in Hollywood to pull it off, because you could only pull it off with the people who did it originally. And it would be funny for the adults, I think, to see it like that. And I think new kids would still get the same thing. I don't know if we could get the same sword fight and the same feel, but I mean, it could possibly be done. I just don't think it should.
Agreed. Yeah. No, I actually like your take on it, where it's now Fred Savage is the father talking to telling the story to his daughter the way his grandfather told it to him. I don't know about having those the original characters or the original cast like that, but I do like that concept. But obviously you would want to change it up a little bit so that it's not literally a rehash of the original story, because now it's Fred telling his daughter the story. His daughter is going to react differently to the scenes than
like the kissing scenes. You could do differently. I mean, you could do differently. You could go into it longer and go like him talking about it and says, "You don't want me to skip over this?" She's go like, "No, it's great." In different. You could do
and
that.
She could be like, "Oh, boring sword fights. Just to get through that." That's
you could. That would be good. I just don't know if you could do that. I don't know. I mean, and if you're going to do that, honest to God, if you're going to do that, you could just take the original scenes from the movie and just cut it differently. You could.
And you know what? The whole thing too is, if he's telling the story to his daughter and she's reacting as a little girl rather than a little boy, then you get your inclusivity.
Yeah, you see, I just I heard some people that said that they think it's going to be gender swapped, and I'm like, how the hell can you gender swap this? No, I'm sorry. I'm not saying a woman couldn't come and rescue a man. I'm not saying that's not possible.
Yeah, but then it's not the Princess Bride.
That's what I'm saying. What are you going to go? What are you going to call it? I just don't know what
that's like gender swapping Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I mean, well, now you say that, that's like going to be, now it's going to be an uproar. Oh my God, they're talking about making Wonder Woman the man. It's going to be Wonder Man. Oh my God.
Yeah, but I mean, it's that ridiculous.
It is. It absolutely is. This is a timeless movie, and I've talked about this with people. You can't change perfection. Perfection. That's what this movie is. And I'm not saying this movie is like the greatest movie ever made. I'm just saying the way it comes across, the way it was shot, the story it tells, it's all perfect. It's not about it being the greatest acting. It's not about being the greatest set pieces or the greatest special effects or anything like that. It's just that the time, the date, the place, the people involved all came together to make a perfectly designed movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't see how in the world, that I like you, buddy, but you're dead wrong. You just said the film was perfectly cast originally, and you were willing to throw that. No, Son of a Red Shirt said, I like you, buddy, but I think you're dead wrong. You just said the film was perfectly cast originally, and you're willing to throw all that away for the sake of a couple of jokes. No freaking, okay. No. Son of a Red Shirt, I will say this again. I came up with a way that it could be done, but there's several facts here that need to be stated. One, nobody in Hollywood is smart enough to pull it off. The cast would all have to agree to come back and all agree to have to do it. And I think they would do it just for the sheer joke of it. But that's not why you remake a movie. And that's all. I'm just saying I could make a case for why. I just personally don't think it should. So I
agreed. Yeah,
I play devil's advocate. So
I think the best they could possibly do if they go through with this redo or whatever is to make it a sequel along the lines of what you were saying. Where it's now Fred is the adult telling it to his kid. That's the only thing. And obviously when I was told a story as a child, I'm going to tell it differently to my son because, I'm reading it differently, different inflections and stuff like that. So the story would be slightly different. So it would be a sort of half and half sequel / reboot because the characters are still telling the same story, literally from a book, but the visuals and the concepts are different because the listener is different.
Yeah.
That's the only way. Like, instead of saying, this is, a remake of The Princess Bride, this is a sequel reboot or something. That's the only thing that they could possibly do. And I hadn't even thought of that idea until you mentioned it.
Yeah, like I said, I just don't want to see anybody else in it. I think that the sheer ridiculousness of recasting them in different parts might be funny, but then again, it really all depends because, again, it's just something about this movie that every time I watch it, I feel like I'm watching some a bit of like a timeless classic. There's something about this movie that even today holds up. My son got this movie at a white elephant party about 3 or 4 years ago, and he brings it home and says, Dad, look what I got. And I said, The Princess Bride. I said, that's pretty kick ass. I said, I have like 3 or 4 copies of it, so whatever. Right. But I said, have you ever seen it? He says, yeah. And he's like, but I really like it. I'm glad I own it. And I'm like, I'm thinking, here's my son who is glad he owns this. This is like the first quote unquote DVD that he owns now. And he's like, I had this for a while. I thought somebody was going to take it from me. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. So he was really happy about that. And that kind of made me feel good that something like this continues to endure to a different generation. I mean,
oh yeah. Like when I showed my son last weekend, he loved it. Like he was riveted and laughing at all the right places. He got all the jokes, and he's 9 years old and from Hong Kong. He's grown up here in the Hong Kong society. Granted, there's a lot of expat influence from me and whatnot, but he got all the references, all the jokes, even though he's grown up in a totally different culture and a totally different time than that movie was made for. So that really speaks volumes to the quality of the storytelling right there.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is the same kid that stood up in the middle of The Last Jedi when Leia Poppins happened in the middle of the theater and shouted, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever seen."
That does not surprise me.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about brass tacks in this movie. So Sorita, she has not seen it. So we'll try not to. So it's not on a streaming service. I got access to most of the typical ones. You can check. I'm not positive if it's on a streaming service or not. I
would actually be really surprised if it's not, unless they pulled it.
It might be. I just don't know which one it would be on. I'm not sure. You'd have to actually check and see who has the rights to it, and maybe type up and see who has the rights to it to stream it. It may be. I mean, it's a popular enough movie that it's one of those things that's like the Brady Bunch. It's on somewhere most of the time. So it might be on a streaming service. I'm not positive. Let's talk about this movie, though. And first off, we'll talk about the casting. There's something to be said about this movie where you look at the people they put in. Robin Wright Penn at the time, she was in this. I think this is one of her first movies, if not her first movie. Cary Elves had just started, and this was kind of his big, I guess we'd call it now, big role because it's lasting endurance. But you have Christopher Guest, you have Mandy Patinkin, you have I'm trying to remember who plays but you have some actors in this and actresses in this that actually had some street cred at the time.
Well, yeah, Billy Crystal, Carol, what the hell's her name?
Carol Kane.
Carol Kane, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I love her.
She's funny. I mean, they're perfect in this. Like I said, Chris Sarandon, who's Prince Humperdinck, who's Susan Sarandon's brother. Sorry. Christopher Guest, of course, is the Count Rugen, which is the Six Finger Man. Wallace Shawn, he is Vicini. Fred Savage, of course, before back when he was in his Wonder Years days. Robin Wright.
I remember that show.
Peter Falk, of course. Peter Cook. Mel Smith, which was the albino. Carol Kane. Billy Crystal. I mean, there's a lot of people in this movie that were bit parts of it. For the people who knew movies back then, they were like, "Oh, I know him. Oh, I know him." Where some of us were,
and even some of them like Vicini. He's one of those guys that I've seen in a bunch of movies. Never knew the actor's name, but I recognized him, and as soon as I see his face, I know that's going to be an interesting character because just the way he is. It's the same as that guy that you always see. He's like one of the, and I still to this day have no idea what his name is, but he's the guy that he's like always one of the bad guys, usually in like a Latino mafia or something like that. He played a movie. He played the main role in something not that long ago. He's like really scarred face. Always has like a handlebar mustache and a goatee, long, dark, greasy hair. I mean, if you saw him,
are you talking about the guy that plays Machete in?
Yes, that's it. I have no idea this guy is, but I see him in all these movies all the time, and I love him, but he's like a nobody. But he's and that's the way
Danny Trejo. Trejo, or I don't know how to say his last name. That's bad on my part. No, that's his. I mean, everybody knows him as Machete. I know that. Yeah, he was in the Sling commercials there for a while. Yeah, no. Wallace Shawn does that. He is like that. He's on Young Sheldon, and he plays the scientist that's like that buddies up with Sheldon because Sheldon's so smart and stuff. Yeah, but I mean, really, the sheer way that these guys interact, even Andre the Giant, when he did this movie, I think he died like 4 or 5 years later. I don't know. I'd have to go check, but he died sometime later. It wasn't long after. But they talked about, if you watch the behind the scenes stuff, they talk about how he would drink quarts of wine every night because of his pain, and he would never be drunk, and that's just all he would do is he drink quarts and quarts and quarts of wine, and they just talk about and he'd still do these things. They say, you know, you could tell he was in pain, but he always did the best he could. And when you watch this movie, he does it's difficult, you can tell, for him to deliver his lines. He wasn't a speaker, but for some reason it worked the way he did it. And
well, you know, I was into wrestling back then, when that movie came out, and when I heard they were casting Andre the Giant, I was like, really? This movie's gonna suck with him in it. Like, he can't act. But then when I watched it, I was like, holy shit, he's like one of the best characters.
No, he is. And so Son of a Red Shirt says, at the time, Andy Patinkin was best known as a Broadway veteran, well respected. Yes, he was. The magnificent Wallace Shawn. Yes, and again, Wallace Shawn is one of those man of many talents and many roles that you just don't think of his name. You're just like, oh, I know that guy. That guy did this. Yeah. You can like name off everything he's ever done. You just can't name his name off. And then Mel Smith, of course, very famous British comedian, starred with Rowan Atkinson on not necessarily the news Lucifer. But again, it was this convergence of all of these talents that just so happened to work perfectly together. And there's all sorts of fun. I never said the word Lucifer. I think YouTube demons are chasing me. He I thought autocorrect caught him.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay, but they just all worked perfectly together. Christopher Guest is another one of those guys that a lot of people don't realize how many things he was in, and he is in. He has been in tons of stuff that you just wouldn't think. He's a veteran of the the Spinal Tap or the Groundlings and things like that. A Mighty Wind, Spinal Tap, Best in Show. He's in all those little comedy movies that are the same group of people. And he's got I think the last time, I'm trying to think here, last time I think he was in anything it looks like was 2016, acting at least, in something called Mascots. But there's a
Danny Trejo.
Trejo, yeah.
That's how it's pronounced. Yeah, because I've got the chat up there now.
Thank you, son. I appreciate you, Son of a Red Shirt. Thank you for doing that. But again, it was just like this. I really don't know how you could cast this thing more perfectly than they did, because
you can't. You cannot.
I've never heard any of these people ever talk like there was an issue on set with each other. They all had a good time. They were laughing, from what I've heard. They all got along with each other. I
think that also speaks a lot about the state of filmmaking, because you always hear now. I mean, it could just be Hollywood propaganda or whatever, but back then you always heard them talking in interviews and everything. Oh, I had a great time. So and so is a good friend of mine now. We're really connected. Blah 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 blah. But nowadays, I think the actors are more focused on social media and attacking fans rather than making connections on the set with each other. So I think their performance is starting to suffer from it.
Yeah.
You know, because back then there was no social media, there was no internet, Facebook, Twitter, and all this for them to spend all their time on, telling fans that they're garbage because they didn't like the movie. They were in Hollywood, in their bubble, with each other, and they interacted with each other. If they interacted with fans, it was face to face.
Yeah. And even then, you would never talk bad about a fan, even if they to your face told you that this movie was crap. You wouldn't talk bad about it because you knew that the chance that this one movie was crap wasn't enough to hang your or die on the hill for. You didn't want to die for that one movie. You knew that the next movie came out, if they were a fan of yours, you have a chance of getting them back. Nowadays, people just don't seem to care. I think there's a lot of problems with the establishment right now with the casting. I don't necessarily say that we have bad actors. I think we have bad casting, that we put actors and actresses in places that they don't have any real right to be in. And they only do what they can. And that then falls on the storytellers, the script writers, the producers. And if they're not capable of putting a story out there that's decent, no matter who reads it, then a person who shouldn't be in the part to begin with can't read it. It doesn't matter what type of credit they have or what type of quality of actor they are. If it's not in their wheelhouse, they can't do it. And I think right now, more people are casted for quotas and for look and stereotype than they are for the role or the ability that they have.
Oh, yeah. 100% agree. Like I'm an indie filmmaker, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'm actually casting for a sizzle reel right now, and our producer gave me several applications for these characters, and he was really not feeling the one character. And I looked at her, I said, well, you know what? Why don't we change this? She doesn't speak. This character should not speak, because I want her, as the director, I want her to speak with body language. So when I do her audition, it's all because I want this character. I want this character. And if she can do it with her body, her body language and her movement, that's what I'm looking for. And from what I've seen of her CV photos or her portfolio photos, she's got the look that I like. And she can pull it off if she can physically play the part.
Yeah.
Like actually do the movements. And and that's the thing. Like the way the writer, who I'm very close with, so this is one of those things like The Princess Bride, actually, where the director and the writer are working very closely together on totally different vision for this character. And through discussing, saying, what if we change this and what if we do that? And I don't think they do that in Hollywood anymore. I mean, first, take for example, The Last Jedi, first draft. And it's like, all right, let's shoot this. Like, that's unheard of. Even if it's a good script, you never take the first draft and completely roll with it. There's no such thing as a perfect first draft. And, and especially when you get into the physical production of it, there's certain things that somebody can imagine and write, but even today is impossible to shoot for one reason or another, whether it's technical, whether it's financial, whether it's, the actors are just not comfortable with that particular scene or whatever, and then you've got to modify it rather than just force it through and say, just do it. Everybody has to be comfortable with the role that they're playing in that production. And if they're not, it shows on the screen. And I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why Princess Bride is so beloved, because I think every one of those people that were on that shoot, whether it was cast or crew, everybody was on board, everybody was having a good time, and everybody was in sync.
Yeah, no,
and it shows.
yeah, for sure. I just think of also the set pieces. How at times you can tell it's very real, like right behind me right now on the picture of Buttercup and Wesley at the farm. You can tell it's in a real place. They may have built the farm and stuff. You can tell it, but when they're on the cliffs of insanity and during the sword fight, it's obviously a set. This movie doesn't really worry about the changes. That's obvious. It is still. I've always said that it's almost like watching a play on stage because it plays out very much like that. The change of scenes, you go from real to obviously a scene. When you watch a play on stage, sometimes the set pieces make it look more real on the stage, but at other times they're so minimalistic that it's obvious they're on a stage and they're playing with the parts that they have. And it's very
and you can also argue that, like you said earlier, this was in Fred Savage's imagination, and kids don't always have the most vivid imagination for certain things, like the sword fight on the top of the cliffs of insanity. That boy would not be focusing his imagination on the background. He would be focusing on that sword fight. So the background obviously would be minimalistic, but wide shots of them running down the hill being chased by the bad guys, that's the whole scene. So that would be more realistic. That would have more detail. So I think you could argue that as well. And who knows, maybe Rob Reiner intended it that way.
Oh, I have.
You notice that some of the scenes, it's not like they're just randomly, we can't do this for real, so we'll just build a set. Certain scenes are sets, and they're obviously sets.
Well,
and
for instance,
the other ones. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You were still on the point. Go ahead.
Yeah, certain scenes are obviously sets. Certain scenes are real life, like the farm. It's not like they were lacking for money to build sets. If they could build that farm and have the huge field and the castle and everything like that, and then have this very fake-looking cliff. So I think that's just because the imagination of a little boy is focusing on a specific part of a scene. So that's where all the detail goes and everything else becomes minimalistic.
Well,
I almost think that might be intent.
Well, there's several intents here. So there are parts where the like the village that they go to for Miracle Max and all that is, they made a village in a forest. But like the Cliffs of Insanity and the sword fight, that area was designed for that sword fight. So the thing was, it was a way to make the sword fight more interesting. They can do jumps off of this. It was all designed to have the up and down movement, the movement from one side to the other, jumps, the aerial acrobatics that they do, or that I don't think they personally did. They had stand-ins for that, but everything was done for the shot. But when it doesn't have to be a certain place or a certain thing, much like when Wesley or the Dread Pirate Roberts and Fezzik is when they're fighting around rocks, but when they're fighting in an area. It doesn't matter. It's not about the area, and it's not necessary to be in a particular area because they're just fighting each other, and it's just anything would have worked, and they used the area to work it out. You go to the Pit of Despair. Well, that's obviously got to be a set because you're saying that it's inside a secret place.
Right.
But for instance, I don't know how they did the castle, but the castle is in a real area. Oh, yeah. Sean Stackhouse, which I can tell why he isn't on the stream today, says, Oh, right. He asked, I don't think I've ever heard of this movie. What am I missing? And I said, Sean, I said, don't play around. You know The Princess Bride. And he says, oh, right. I just block it out because it's trash. Now, everybody, I can give you Sean's address. I can give you his location to a T. I can give you his many different email addresses. I can tell you where his channel is so you can hate spam him. And I can tell you where he's at on Twitter. Just if you want to know, most of his information is down into the description.
Chris, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. My earbuds kicked out on me. Just give me 1 second.
Oh, yeah. But if you want to talk crap on Sean for not liking this movie, go right ahead. Shellback, you know what? Shellback is the type of person who will come and shell shock you in a minute. For it to me right now, I can make it look like an accident. Well, Sean will make it look like an accident. I mean, Sean just probably falling down the stairs. There you are. Yeah, anyways, Sean says this movie is trash.
Sean, I'm going to find you and I'm going to kick your ass.
See?
You must die now.
You see? That's the thing. Son of a Red Shirt says, Ernest Hemingway himself famously said that 3 keys to great writing are: number 1, rewrite; number 2, rewrite; but most importantly, number 3, rewrite.
Absolutely.
But you like the scenes with the castle and stuff like that. I think on the outside was live areas with just the castle built in, but I can't remember. They might have actually used a real castle. But this movie, point blank, does the best job for staging the scenes as needed. And the story's perfect. I mean, what do you think the story is about? Let me ask you that.
True love.
Yeah, but what?
No, but I mean,
it's
a classic fairy tale. It's a classic fairy tale that you would find in a children's storybook, but it's put to the feel of a film. But I could literally envision going to a bookstore and finding this book and reading that to my son, and I don't even know how to say it. Like it seems like it was a literal book come to life.
It is exactly that. The thing I think is funny, or not funny, I think that is interesting to note here is that we're led along this whole movie with this great cast and this great story. And at the end of the day, when it begins, it's about this grandfather coming to spend time with his grandson.
Right.
Not because he wants to, but because he feels the obligation. And at the end, you find out that this whole story was just about that bond that the grandfather feels with the grandson. Because the grandson asks at the end of it, well, Grandpa, do you think you can come back tomorrow and read it? And he says, as you wish. And you realize this whole time, this story that's being told is just a story as a means to an end to say that true love comes in many forms. This is not about love like some people think, like between a man and a woman or whatever you want to say. I'm not saying that that's the only way to have love, but I mean physical, sexual love, whatever you want to say, a relationship, a marriage, anything like that. That's not about what this movie's about. It's what it shows. It shows it's love between a man and a woman, and he would do anything to find her and to get her and save her or do whatever he had to do for her in true love. What it's really about is what love is about. It can be platonic in between a man and a man, a grandfather, a grandson, a mother, a son, a mother, a daughter, a father, a daughter, whatever. It is not about anything sexual. It's about the feel and the need to do something, not because you have to, but because you want to. And at the end of the movie, that's what.
And that actually brings up the key point from Frozen, actually. The whole thing where they turned around and said that true love, in that case, was between sisters.
Yes.
And that's something I think is one of the biggest misconceptions. Like, we got that when we were kids. You know, the concept, when you say true love, you automatically think, you know, prince or princess, they ever after. But you know, the idea, when you think of your parents, if you had a good relationship with your parents, that's true love, because it's unconditional. And I think that's the real point. Is it's not so much true love, quote, air quotes there. It's not true love, it's unconditional love. You know, and that's what we see with Fred and his grandfather.
And that's the funny thing. You're led on this journey for, you know, an hour and a half, whatever it is. It's not that long of a movie, but you're led on this journey, and it's not about that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's throughout the whole thing. The grandfather stops. Well, if you want me to stop, I'll stop. Or no, you don't want to hear this. Oh, I'll just leave. And it's not about the book. It's not about the story. It's about him being there for his grandson. And you know, there's more connotation into it, because you get the feeling that you're not sure if the father is there or not. This guy could, you know, Peter Falk could just be his father figure too. It could be a, you know, there's more pull there than just being his grandfather. It could be that I feel a need to give him something that'll inspire him later on in life, which I think again lends credence to the fact that you could do a sequel with Fred Savage reading this to his daughter, and again. Single father feeling the need to give something to his granddaughter or his daughter to pass along. But again, that's not enough a premise for a movie to be remade.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, now some interesting facts about this movie. One, Mark Knopfler of Dire Straits, or Mark Knopfler himself. He's a great guitarist, but he did the soundtrack for this movie, and a lot of people don't know this. I used to make jokes when I found out. I was like, well, damn, what'd they do? Lock him in a freaking closet and tell him you can't come out until you give us the soundtrack, because it's not the greatest soundtrack. But it was 80s. It had a lot of keyboards and stuff. I mean, the ending song, you know, My Love is Like a Storybook Story, is like, wow, that's just really bad, like, lyrics. I'm like, anyway.
Really? I liked it.
It just to me, I don't know. I guess
it suits the movie though.
It does.
Suits the movie though.
I just think it's like, yeah. And also knowing Mark Knopfler and some of the stuff he's written, I was like, wow.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I think that's the big thing there is when you think of you know, a certain artist. A friend of mine was actually telling me one of their they were some country song played by Johnny Cash or something, and it was the song was actually written by
Trent Reznor.
Rock.
Yeah, Trent Reznor
something like
did,
that. Yeah.
Well, Nine Inch Nails did Hurt, and Johnny Cash on his last album did it. And I'll tell you what, Johnny Cash's version is much more soulful. I mean, I like Nine Inch Nails and Trent Reznor, but Johnny Cash hit it out of the park. It's crazy. But you know, the funny thing is I'm sure he got paid. I'm sure Mark Knopfler got paid, but the only way he agreed to do it, and Shellback will like this if Shellback doesn't know this, the only reason that Mark Knopfler did this was he told Rob Reiner, he says, if I do the soundtrack for this movie, you have to put the hat that you wore in This Is Spinal Tap in the movie someplace. So if you look in Fred Savage's room to his left, so you know, to the right of him, if he's facing
Screen
the
right.
camera. Yeah, screen right. You will see, I think it's hanging up like close to his lamp or something like that. And when we get back around to it, I'll point it out if I can. It has this what you call an admiral's hat. It has scrambled eggs on it, and it says I can't remember if it says admiral or something, but that's where you got it. So that's where they put it, is in Fred Savage's room. I'll see if I can find a picture and share it on here real quick. Let's see here. I'm just looking for this here. All right. Yep, right here. This would be a good picture. And give me a second. So I'm going to share the screen. And if you look and if you follow my thing right here, this is the Admiral's scrambled eggs hat from This Is Spinal Tap. If you see my cursor, I don't know if you see it or not, but it's right there above to the right of Fred Savage's head, up in the top of the picture. So that is where they that's where they put that hat. You see that, Kiri?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sorry, I had to pop out again because whenever somebody phones me, my Galaxy Buds shut off and it goes to the speaker. I don't understand that.
No, that's all right. But no, right there, though, like I said, the hat from This Is Spinal Tap, which is basically the only way that Mark Knopfler agreed to do the soundtrack. So that's an interesting thing. Another interesting thing, I'm trying to remember where they shot this at, but at the time, I know that there's supposed to be a war between Florence and what's the other? Gilder. I think, though, where they shot that at, I'm going to have to see. I think I've read that there might have actually been some sort of skirmish nearby or something. It was in Derbyshire, England,
I remember something
Sheffield, in South Yorkshire, England, and County Clare, Ireland. I think that they were saying something about the Irish Independent Army or whatever that was back then, that always gave threats or something. That it was something like that. They were threatening the set or something like that. So there's some interesting things like that were going on at the time. So, but truthfully, again, no matter what Sean has to say, this is really
Sean, we're gonna fight.
Sean says he prefers Willow over this film.
You know, I loved Willow too, but they're two totally different types of movies. Sure, they're both fantasy based, but Willow takes you into the world and you're supposed to suspend your disbelief while you watch it. This is, like you said, a grandfather telling his grandson a story.
Yeah.
So obviously the tone is going to be totally different because you're not being taken into the story so much as you're taken into that child's imagination of the story he's being told. Whereas Willow, you are being taken directly into the world.
Yeah. Sean's, I think, just looking to be killed. I think Sean
Oh my God.
Did you see that?
You need to give me his address. Yes. Howard the Duck was funny and everything, but it was still nowhere near Godfather quality. And to say that The Princess Bride makes Howard the Duck look like Godfather, dude, I'm coming to your house and I'm going to fight you. FIPE, fight you. You are dead meat. I swear to God.
Wow. That's horrid. All right, let's do some final thoughts about this. None of which are threats directly at Sean, which I will not confirm nor deny that I may or may not be. His address today to one or more people. Perhaps I may or may not be doing that. And if I do, I will probably not tell Hen, and I may or may not be filming that for a later video. Just saying, all disclaimers out of the way. Allegedly, I might be dealing with some sort of a plot later on. Howard the Duck was horrible. That's the point. Oh, God. Howard the Duck wasn't necessarily horrible. It just wasn't done the way Howard the Duck should have been done. It got weird. Too many points. I really think in the Marvel Universe it is now. The 5 seconds that Howard the Duck has been on are some of the best 5 seconds that Howard the Duck has ever had on screen. But just okay. So final thoughts, Kiri. Final thoughts on The Princess Bride. Why don't you tell me what your thoughts are on this movie, and we'll close it up.
All right. This movie is a classic fairy tale that you cannot improve on. So don't even try. You know, retelling it is one thing, but trying to improve on it and make it woke is, like everything else, it's just going to ruin it. And it's perfect the way it is. If you want to make more money off of it, just put it in, 4K resolution and put it back on the big screen as is. That's all that you should do. Nothing else.
I agree with that. I'd love to see a 4K version of this. I have I have my digital copy, which I think has been enhanced. It's not high def, I don't think. I think it's 480, I think is what it says. But a 1080p or 4K, yeah, this movie would shine. I think it'd shine very well. I mean, it looks beautiful as it is. The sets, the costumes. I mean, again, I'm talking about a fantasy movie, and the attention to detail they put into so much of this stuff. They're wearing these loose shirts and stuff. It doesn't look all proper. You have Wesley, who obviously is a pirate now, but he's always been a poor farm boy. So he never wears what you would consider royalty clothing.
Right.
Fezzik and Inigo Montoya, they're not wearing anything really overly fancy. It's a leather vest and a very old shirt. Vicini, he's wearing this more like a duke would wear, but not a full-on princess or prince or anything like that. There's very definitions of the different classes. You could tell that they're not all the same group. It's not like they're trying to make this look pretty. And as the movie goes along, and there's the fire swamp and the or not the fire swamp, but the I guess it is the fire swamp, isn't it?
With the rats?
Yeah. Is that the fire swamp?
Yeah.
I think it is. Yeah. Well, you see, after that, Wesley looks beat up and dirty and stuff. So, they don't change that. They don't ever look to make it look pretty. They do very well with keeping with the themes of what's going on. And again, it's all for a little story that's being told by a grandfather to a grandson. Just sheer genius how this was done. And like I said, also when I talked about possible remake, the only way, Sean, he says he can improve it. Sean, you can't improve anything. Your idea of improving it is He-Man, like you just said. He says, I love to see a 4K version too. He-Man toys would look amazing. But this movie, again, for all the great things that it has in it, the funny scenes of tricking Vicini into thinking that he's not drinking poison when they're both poisoned, all that stuff. All of this is just a story between a grandfather and a grandson. That's all it is. Throughout all of this, and that's the funny thing is you've been pulled through to an hour and 45 minutes, whatever, and at the end of it, you went right along with them on the same journey they went on, and at the end of it, that's really what the movie's about: is these two real characters that are interacting with a book. So, Okay, let's see here. I have to open up my wheel of names. We're going to open up the wheel of names, and we're going to share that. So we're going to share this screen right there. And it is time for the wheel of names. And yes, Sean, I believe you're on here. Yes, hopefully just to screw with you. I will have you on next week. We'll see if it picks you. But if we have you on next week, I will pick something you would hate to talk about, which I'm sure I could figure something out. So here we go. Wheel of names is going to spin round and round and round and round and round and round and round. And where it stops is, well, it is now with Mark with a C. He has his channel, The Gospel According to Mark with a C. And he has been so gracious. Yeah, he's so gracious that the first one of these I did, Sean tried to say he's stealing your thunder, and he says, no, guy seems cool to me. So I asked him if he would do the show. I'll have to check with him. He has a lot of things going on, I'm pretty sure. So if we can get him on next week, we will. If we can't, we will schedule another time, and we'll probably have a intermediate thing we do next week. So I will let you guys know. Thank you very much to everybody who's watching us after the fact. Thank you also. Thank you for all of my subs out there. I appreciate you guys helping me get up to 357. Hopefully we'll see 400 really, really soon. And Kiri, why don't you tell everybody one more time where they can find you, what you're about, and all of that.
Alrighty. So you can find me talking about geek stuff on YouTube, as well as my journey through being transgender, if you're so interested. Just Kiri Morning on YouTube. Or if you want to hear me, read me, take the piss out of some SJWs, I am on Twitter at Morning Kiri. I'm also on Facebook. You can just look up. I think I'm the only one with the name Kiri anywhere. So, yeah.
And don't forget, next week, if Mark with a C cannot be here, we'll probably have the live grudge match between Kiri and Sean.
I'm going to destroy him.
Live pay-per-view. No holds bar.
I'm getting a cut of that, right?
Yeah. We're not going to cut out the violence and the blood and the bloodshed. No, it's going to be pure on gore. It's going to be a celebrity death match.
Oh, yeah, I'm down for that.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much, Kiri. I appreciate you coming on today. Great talk. Guys, if you haven't seen it, I know a couple people said that they haven't seen it. Please go out and see this movie. If you can't find it, contact me and I'll help you find it. My information is down below, as is Kiri's. Sean Stackhouse, which is a part of the Real Review 3000. I do appreciate all the help he has given me over the past few months. And I pretend I didn't hear it. But everybody,
we might need to fire him.
No. Sean's a really good fatality. Yeah, Sean's a great guy.
I love Sean.
Guys, thank you, everybody, for watching. Please hit that like button. Smash the like button down below. And also hit the subscribe button. Hit that bell so you know when we're coming out with new stuff. We had a movie talk today with Stieg and Miss. Check that out. That was at 5 o'clock. We released that. We have one coming out tomorrow that's actually going to be premiere. Check that out. Guys, thank you. Kiri, say goodbye to everybody out there. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everybody out there.
Woo.
Hey.